Good morning. This is Sunday morning with Brother Van, number 7. Good to be with you this morning. This film is being made in lieu of church services for Sunday. I think the date is the 26th of April. It is there's a subject today that I'd like to discuss with you that may be a little bit unusual, maybe like something you've never heard before. I am a teacher. I'm a retired teacher, and so the way I approach things may be a little different from a typical preacher. I'm an ordained gospel evangelist, but I still look at some information a little bit differently from typical pastorate type preachers. What I would like to call to your attention today is the fact that there's a tremendous amount of information in the Bible other than religious. And when I look at the Bible and I think of the fact that it's 2,000 pages long, this one right here is close to 2,000 pages, but actually all you need to be saved is one verse. There are several verses in the scripture that explain salvation. John 3:16 is such, John 14:6 is another, Romans 10:9 is one, Acts 4:12. There are numerous scriptures that you only need that one verse in order to know what salvation is all about. But other than that, there's a tremendous amount of information. We know that the Bible is a history book. We're told the history of the Jewish people. It is a geography book. I prefer to study the Bible with a map, so I can look at that map and visualize places that I have been in that area, and also what that place actually looks like in Israel and the surrounding area, Egypt, from the book of Exodus, for example. It is really interesting to look at the philosophy that's stated in the Bible. And over the next few Sundays, I'm going to be taking a look at some of these subjects that the Bible teaches us that we normally don't think of. I have found that there are, in meeting so many people over the years, I have found that there are numerous people that just really don't know what's in the Bible. Just recently I heard about a man, I didn't talk to him personally, but I heard about a man that when he was told the story of Adam and Eve in the book of Genesis, he had no idea what the person was talking about. And I just can't imagine anybody not knowing about Adam and Eve and their infamous snake. But still this man did not. But I also know full well there are many Christians that don't know what's in the Bible either. There's a tremendous amount of scientific information in the Bible and prophecy telling us what the future is going to be. Only the God of the Holy Bible knows what the future is going to be. There's so many of the religious texts that are around the world of the different religions, the pagan religions, the non-Christian religions, and they don't contain this type of information. They do not, their God does not predict the future, is what I'm trying to say. So it's really interesting to take a look at some of this information contained in the Bible, and that's what I'd like to do over the next few weeks, few Sundays. I try to hold the length of these videos down to about 15 minutes. As I said, I'm a teacher, and I know the human attention span, including mine, is very limited. And so about 15 minutes is enough for one Sunday morning, and so that's what we're going to do. If we take a look at some of the information that's in the Bible, some of it will surprise you. It did me when I found it out. For example, the old sailor's poem, red sky in the morning, sailors take warning, red sky at night, sailors delight. That's in the book of Matthew, chapter 16, verses 2 and 3. By the same token, there's a lot of information that's said to be in the Bible that's not. I heard a person say once that all men are created equal. That's in the Bible. Well, no, it's not. It's not in the Bible. It's in the Declaration of Independence, and Abraham Lincoln said it a few times, but it's actually not in the Bible. And so what we look for when we're studying the Bible, we look for evidence of what God has told us to show us conclusively that the Bible proves itself from within itself. I have believed that for a long time, and as I have studied through this different type of information, the prophecy and the scientific information, I have seen that it is not possible for any man to have known some of this information 2,000 years ago, 3,000, nearly 4,000 years ago, when the Bible was actually written. One statement I heard made not too long ago, actually, a man said, well, you know, I could write a book and make predictions in the first half and make those predictions come true in the second half of that book. And, well, that's true. Sure he could. I could too. You could. We could write a book and do exactly the same thing. And then he went ahead and said, I believe the Bible has just been written recently. Now, recently in Bible speak is, well, 200 years, 300 at the most. And he believed that the Bible was recently written in order to make mankind behave. Well, if that was the case, it didn't work. But nonetheless, we have definite proof that the Bible is old, very old. I want to tell you a little story about a place down southeast of Jerusalem called Qumran. I say down because it's downhill from Jerusalem. Jerusalem's about 2,700 feet above sea level. Jerusalem's a mountainous type of place, but still, I guess that's an average. And the Dead Sea is 1,200 feet below sea level. And this Qumran, this old town or village of Qumran, is almost to the Dead Sea if you go southeast from Jerusalem. The walls of the old village are still there, parcels of them, maybe 2 feet high, enough that you could tell that there was a village there at one time. Behind that village of Qumran, there is a canyon. If we look at that canyon and we think of the word canyon, we may think, here in America, we may think of the Grand Canyon, or we may think of the Canyonlands National Park in Utah. This canyon is a little bigger than a gully, but it's not near as big as some of our American out west canyons. So it's interesting to take a look at this erosion in the ground there behind Qumran. If you stand on the edge of that gully, that canyon, and you look across on the far side of that, you can see caves in the far wall of that canyon. In 1947, there was a very interesting thing that took place there. There are people that still live out in the desert called Bedouins, and they live out there and they herd their animals, goats mostly, sheep, donkeys, camels, cattle, whatever they may have. They've done that for thousands of years, and they still do that, just like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did nearly 4,000 years ago. And they live out there and they move around according to where the pasture is, whatever that may be in that desert, grass, weeds, whatever the animals eat. As they turn green, they move their tents and go to where the green grass is. And so these Bedouins, several of them, were down in that canyon behind Qumran in 1947, and one of them picked up a rock and threw it up into one of those caves. And when he did, he heard a very unusual sound, a very unusual noise, like a clink sound. And so they climbed up there and they found what we now know are the Dead Sea Scrolls. When those Dead Sea Scrolls were finally gotten to some Hebrew scholars in Jerusalem and they examined them, they found that they were parts of the writing of the Bible as we know it, the Torah to a Jew. The Old Testament books of the Bible. They found the book of Isaiah in its entirety. I do not read Hebrew, so I can't verify that personally. I can verify that they do exist because I've been this close to that book of Isaiah in the Jerusalem Museum, and it is there. And they claim that it is word for word of what their Torah says, which is basically the same thing as our Old Testament book of Isaiah and this Bible right here. How old are they? Well, they were carbon dated, and they carbon dated to between 1900 and 2300 years old. So this, without a doubt, confirms that they are exactly what they say they are. I have several good friends and acquaintances that are police officers or retired police officers, and I've heard them say numerous times, always follow the evidence. Evidence is a very strong thing, a strong word. The word evidence is actually used in the Bible. The evidence of things seen or things not seen, evidence of things to come. It's used quite a lot in the Bible. And so when we look for evidence of the scriptures, it is there. And the reality of the Bible, it is actually there, and it is real and true. There are people in our world called atheists and agnostics and people of pagan religions. There are doubters. There are people that are called, I call them nothings, and basically that sounds pretty insulting, and I don't mean it that way. It just simply means that they adhere to no religion, period. They have no thought of God or the Bible or anything about any religion at all. So it's necessary for us to regard these people as people that we should be trying to convince of the reality of the Scripture. Now, when we start trying to prove the Bible, one of the things that we have to realize is that proof is within the mind of the beholder. Proof is to one person, and it may not be to another. But when I look at the Scriptures, and I know this story of Qumran, and the Bible is actually old as it actually is claimed to be, and was written by over 40 different men over a period of 1,500 years, I believe very sincerely that it is real and true, and it is what it says it is. Over the next few weeks, I'm going to discuss several things with you concerning Bible science, the simple life skills that we're taught in the Bible, Bible prophecy, some of the things that are happening in our world today are Bible prophecy happening right before our eyes. Before I go here, I want to give you an example of what I'm talking about Bible prophecy. In the book of 2 Timothy, in reading in chapter 3, Paul wrote, "This know also that in the last days," this is what's important right here that we look at in that very first verse, "the last days perilous times shall come." Now I want you to listen to these characteristics of people, of mankind in the last days. "For men shall be lovers of their own selves, covetous, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers," I bet that one rings a bell in our day and time, "incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good, traitors, heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God, having a form of godliness and denying the power thereof, for such turn away." Now, if that doesn't paint you a picture of mankind in the 21st century, I don't know what would. And that was written by Paul about 1900 years ago. So he has really hit the nail on the head with that description of the human race in 2020. When we look at these Bible prophecies, and I'll be sharing with you several of them over the next few Sundays, we know that God knows the future. God knows not only the past, what has happened in the past, He knows our past and our future personally, and He knows it as a nation, and He knows it as a world. He has given us prophecy. I'm thinking of some in the book of Revelation, where He tells us specifically what's going to happen in the last days. I think it's very important that Christians know what that prophecy says and be watching for that prophecy to take place. One of the statements I'm thinking of in particular is in Acts chapter 1 verse 11. Jesus had just ascended into heaven, and when He did, the angel came unto the disciples and he said, "Why do you stand there gazing up?" And I could just imagine the disciples standing there gazing up into the sky wondering, where did He go? What happened to Jesus? And I can imagine them saying, "Peter, where'd He go?" "I don't know. Where do you think He went?" And then the angel said to them, "This Jesus will come again and appear to you as He left." So we know that Jesus is coming again. The Scripture tells us that. We know that the Scripture proves itself from within itself. I hope you'll tune in with me on these videos. As I said, it's Brother Van, Sunday morning with Brother Van, this one is 7. And we'll be looking at those and the different scriptural prophecies, the science in the Bible, and just some simple life skills that the Bible teaches us. It's important for Christians to know these things and to practice these things. And the Bible, we've been told so many years that it's a guide for our life. Well, it really is. I regard it sometimes as my owner's manual. It is the manual by which I know I need to live my life. I'm not going to say I always do, but I'm giving it my best shot here. So be with me again next Sunday. Look forward to doing this and studying some more of this myself. Thank you very much for being with me. Have a great day. Bye.